Hey, today we're talking about the nitrogen cycle. Exciting stuff. And if I can ever get this thing to move. Okay, so the nitrogen cycle is on the periodic table, and it is the seventh, as we see here, the seventh element in the nitrogen, of the periodic table. And it's for atmospheric nitrogen, it's going to be N2. So here's some quick facts about nitrogen. Remember when we talked about the carbon cycle and we talked about energy and bonds it creates? Now we have the nitrogen cycle, which are the building blocks. And we remember this when we did protein synthesis, right? Because we use our nitrogen bases, right, to form this protein through protein synthesis. And the last thing, which is amazing, is that the number one gas in the atmosphere is nitrogen. It's 78% of nitrogen. Isn't that crazy? But we cannot use it like that. We can't breathe in nitrogen and use it in our bodies, and it's just not possible. It has to go through several steps in order to do this. So where do we find it? So we find it in living plants. We find it in live animals. We find it in the air, which is N2. We find it in the soil, dead animals, and plants. So we find it all over the place in waste, right? So animal waste. Poop has a lot of nitrogen in it. Okay, it's also found in the ocean. There's a huge amount of nitrogen in the ocean. There's also found in fertilizer. So fertilizer, that you put on your grass and everything, it has nitrogen in it. And sometimes you can over-fertilize and it's not good. So nitrogen always comes in pairs in the air. So it's called N2. So there's two nitrogen atoms and they are bonded together. So now plants and animals, we can't use that N2 from the atmosphere. So we have to get it through a different process. So what we're going to do is there are certain types of bacteria in the soil that's going to help facilitate this. So it's going to take that N2 from the atmosphere and so use it so that it can be used by plants and animals. I keep doing the wrong thing, sorry. So once it's changed into a usable form by this bacteria, it can then be used by the plant, and then animals eat plants, so they get the nitrogen from the plants. And also another way for it to come down to the soil is through lightning. So lightning is a huge factor as well. So bacteria changing N2 into a form that can be used by plants is called nitrogen fixation. So nitrogen fixation. So we are taking the nitrogen from the atmosphere, we're bringing it down to the soil, and we're fixing it so that it can be used by plants and animals. So it's nitrogen fixation. That's it coming from the atmosphere down to the soil. So this could happen in a variety of forms. Lightning does it right away, and if it's by lightning, you don't even need the little bacteria. But aren't they cute right here? And also, as it rains, it could hitch onto a raindrop and be brought back down to the soil. So any bacteria that does this is called nitrogen fixing bacteria. So the way to remember, it's almost the same words, right? Nitrogen fixation, nitrogen fixing bacteria, because this bacteria is going to fix that nitrogen in order to be usable by plants. So this is an important part. So remember, we have the atmosphere. It could come down like rain on a raindrop or something, lightning, huge, remember, and then come to the soil. So it's going to be, lightning doesn't really need the bacteria, but when it comes down, we have this nitrogen fixing bacteria that's going to then change it so the plants can use it. So let's recap on this. So we have, see if you can tell me where nitrogen fixation is taking place in this process. So we have option A, which is the atmosphere. We have option B, which is usable nitrogen. Option C, that's accepted by the plant. And option D, oh, I messed it up, sorry. D, which would have been accepted by animals. But it's going to be option B, where it comes from the atmosphere down to the soil, where these little guys, these bacteria, are going to then fix it so it can be used by the flower. So what's next? Right? So we have the nitrogen, it's come down from the atmosphere in the N2, it's come down, it's now at the bacteria, right, that has changed it into nitrogen. The nitrogen fixing bacteria changes it into a nitrogen that is usable to go to the roots of that plant. So, you know, we just studied plants, so you can remember they're going to go up the xylem, up into the rest of that plant. So now what happens is there's waste, right? So we have animals that poop, right? And then we also have plants or death. And what's going to happen is things that die or once they're dead, they're going to decompose. And this will then go, the nitrogen will then go back to the soil. So we can see this poor little cow here. It's very sad. And then the plant has to go too. There it goes. Oh, very sad. But it's bringing that nitrogen back to the soil. So then we have this other bacteria, and you can see by these red little dots here, and these are going to be my decomposers, and they are going to help break those down. So animal waste and dead organisms are broken down by decomposers, and their nitrogen is then released back to the soil. So we should have already done food chains and food webs, and remember, all decomposers break down everything. So in the end of a food web or a food chain or something like this, everything would be going back to decomposers because they're going to break it down, and then that nitrogen is going to be released back into that soil. And these are a lovely picture right there of our decomposers. Hey, can you put your phone down? I'm teaching a lesson. Thank you. So two things can happen from here. So that nitrogen that has gone back to the soil can either be reabsorbed by the plants, right? Because this is what happened in the very beginning, or it can go to a second type of bacteria, and that will change it into N2, which then will go back to the atmosphere. So this bacteria, so this whole process of going from, dead organisms or animal waste or whatever, and it's going to go through these little bacteria to change it back is called denitrification. So denitrification. So recall that coming down to the soil was nitrogen fixation, and now we're undoing that process. So it's called denitrification. Coming in is nitrogen fixation, going out back to the atmosphere is denitrification. Now, of course, these little guys here, they have to have a special name, right? Just like the other ones. And these are called, and hold your breath, they are called denitrifying bacteria. So these guys are going to send it back up to the atmosphere. I know, very cute. Okay, so here we have the cycle. So we see the N2 comes to the first set of bacteria and it's usable. It will go to the plants and then to the animals, and then the cow will poop and die, the flower will die. Then that other bacteria will then either change it back to go to the atmosphere, or it can recycle into the plant and do this process all over again. So that's the cycle. There it goes, back to the atmosphere. Okay, so let's just recap one more time. So here we have our atmospheric nitrogen and our cute little clouds. There it is, N2, 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 which is in the atmosphere. We're going to come down, right? We're bringing that down to the soil through a process we call nitrogen fixation. This can also come down through lightning. So you might add that to your notes. Okay, so then this bacteria here that it's going to go to is our nitrogen fixing bacteria. So then that's going to go into the roots of the plant, and it's going to then go in the plant, right? And from here, this is going to be eaten by our lovely cow. And it's going to consume it, right? So that's consumption. And then he's going to poop, right? We all poop. Everybody does. So there we have the poop. Then what happens is that things are going to die. So we're going to have the cow, the flower, the cow. There's death. It's very sad. And then what's going to happen is as the decomposers come, right, we're going to then do two different things, right? So we're either going to, wait, hold on. So yes, so we're either going to go from our decomposers, and we have two paths we could go, right? So we're either going to go back into the plant to start that whole process over, or we're going to go back to the denitrifying bacteria over here, and we're going to be released back to the atmosphere here. So you can see it's a cycle. So there's like a little cycle within the cycle, because once the plant and animal and the poop, are broken down by the decomposers, they can either go through the cycle again to another plant, or they can go to the denitrifying bacteria and return to the atmosphere. And that is called denitrification. So humans are affected by the nitrogen cycle. First of all, there's fertilizer overload. Are you guys paying attention? We're not done yet. Fertilizer overload. So this is when farmers and stuff, they're putting too much fertilizers on their crops. And what happens is it will wash off and get into water systems. And you can see here, this is the result of it. So all this is nitrogen, and it'll make bacteria, and it's not good at all. So here's another picture of what it causes in the waters. And look, you can see this whole thing here. That's pretty sad. So there's also air pollution, which, you know, we take a role in as well. So we have our exhaust, we have factories that come out and billow out, and then there are greenhouse effects, our greenhouse gases. And this is, you know, carbon dioxide from fossil fuel and all kinds of stuff we can see here. Laughing gas here. Okay, so what else should I know about the nitrogen cycle? Well, there are a few things. Beans, lightning. Remember how I mentioned lightning earlier? So that lightning, poor little cow, the lightning will come down and it will bring nitrogen with it. And in fact, the nitrogen doesn't actually have to go through the nitrogen fixing bacteria, because when it hits land, it's already done that process. So it just goes straight to the plants. Poor guy. And that's it. If, you know, I hope you guys understand and fill in your notes. You can always go back and look at this, and I'll see you later. Bye.